Welcome to my drawing advent calendar. Every day until Christmas you'll get a drawing tip or a little mini drawing lesson. Click on the bell to be reminded. Have fun and a wonderful holiday season.
Now let's draw a little bit of white fur. So you know white fur is never white. So let's start to sketch in here some fur structure. So let's sketch in with a cream with the ivory color here our first outlines of the white fur. I would try to draw here only some clumps of fur here, so let's map in here the outline, make a little sketch. I'm using here a cream color for the base layer. You know, white fur is also never only white. You can find lots of colors in white fur, so don't try to draw white fur only with white. So here I'm starting the base layer with the creamy, the yellowy color, the ivory color. Blend this layer a little bit together and then let's add here, let's bring in a skin color. It's the light flesh 132 of the pits, for example, or use the light flesh of the Carpotellos, or a saffron from the Torrents, for example. So blend this first layer together. Then let's add another layer with white. So even in the base layer I try to draw in fur direction. So I always try to follow the fur direction and yes, the direction the fur is going. And so we try to build up those shapes with different colors. In white fur you can find pinks, violets, blues, grays, yellows, browns and so on. White fur never is only white. So let's plot in all those colors here first and blend the layer together. Here I have a little bit dark pastel pigment on the blending stamp, but that's not bad. That's for me useful, so I use here the black pigment on the paper stamp. I have, I still have on it from blending another portrait before, so you can use this pastel pigment here for adding some shadows here. Otherwise you can add a little bit of black, of course, with the black pastel pencil if you have a clean paper stamp. Yes, and then blend this little shadow areas here between. If I have black pastel pigment on the blending stamp, I use it. It can be very useful. Just bring in here a little bit of this pigment into the portrait, and otherwise you apply it with your pastel pencil. Let's blend all those layers together. So I want to avoid those gritty looks, so I blend all the little gritty things you can see here when you have applied your first layer of pastels. So go over it with the paper stamp or with the fingers and blend the first layer very well, so you can see your first structure of the fur even is there, even when you blend it. Okay, then let's work again on the first structure. So bring in with the flesh color a little bit of the pinky color. And then use carpet mortum. I really love to use carpet mortum for creating white fur. So let's bring in some fur lines here with carpet mortum. Let's draw some lines and blend them here as well. And here as well. Let's bring in here the carpet mortum. So I'm using very light pressure and go over and over it again and let the hairs here cross and overlap. So we build up here all those little clumps of fur. Then let's use a white again. We can go in now with the white pit, for example, and let's add here some white hairs. Let them go here together to tips here, and let's build up those clumps of fur here. So when you draw longer fur, you have to work in clumps. Let's bring in here all those lighter hairs now. Let them here go together. Also here and here, create those tips here, those ends of the clumps. So let the hairs here come together. You can also add some fine flying hairs. Blend the white parts a little bit. You can also bring in here some white hairs that are crossing the parts you have created before. When you apply more pressure, when you draw with your pencil and use more pressure, you can create more brilliant white lines. And if you use very low gentle pressure, you can draw those very tiny, fine, thin lines and strokes. You can also bring in here some hairs and clumps in the other direction here towards the right side, and bring in here some hairs that are crossing here. I would work here a little bit with a gray and add here a little shadow area here below, and also between those lighter parts we can go in a little bit with gray. A useful tool I also love to use is a cutter, a crafting knife. So you can refine the fur structure with a crafting knife by scratching over the layers you have created, and remove a little bit color and scratch in here some structure, some fur structure. So I love that tool to refine the fur. So let's add a little bit of black very gently here to increase the depth. Blend it together with the paper stamp so that those the contrast is not too big. So let's keep the contrast here low, because the white fur should appear very soft. Also here the flying hairs, they shouldn't be too hard. Okay, then let's use, for example, the skin color and add here some very fine fluffy hairs again. Also here I'm going over the paper very gently. Then let's do this with white. Use very low pressure and create here some of those thin flying hairs. Okay, great. Let's add here a little bit of shadow on the left side of this clump of fur here. Let's add here a little bit of contrast. Also here I'm using a middle gray for this. Let's bring in some fine little strokes of middle gray again here to refine the texture of the fur here. Let's work again a little bit on the fur. Let's bring in some very fine, thin, darker lines here. I'm going over the layers we have drawn here very gently with the gray pencil, and let's add here a little bit of darker area here. It's a little bit behind and this strand of fur is in front. So let's darken up this area here a little bit so this strand can pop up to the front a little bit more. Also here we can add a little bit of shadow behind this strand of hair here. And let's darken this shadow area here a little bit. Okay. Then let's go over it again with white. So I'm using now a very sharp white pastel pencil. And let's add some white hairs again here finally. Here we can add some white hairs, and here we can create a thinner tip, hair tip here, a thinner end of the strand here. Yes. Okay, so this little fur lesson is finished now. I hope you could follow, and